Ming Xian Shui was born on the 15th of October, 1950, in Taiwan. His mother was Taiwanese, and his father was American. He had 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. When he was 8, his family moved to Minnesota, USA. They were financially stable, and his father was a professor at the University of Minnesota. In 1961, at the age of 11, Ming Xian's father passed away from natural causes. This event triggered violent behavior in him. He started beating his younger siblings and acting violently towards them. This aggressive behavior began at age 11, intensified during his teenage years, and continued into adulthood. In his teens, he engaged in criminal activities such as setting fire to 3 strangers' apartments and throwing rocks at vehicles. Becoming a rebellious teenager. At age 14, due to the fires he set, he received a court order to attend multiple psychotherapy sessions. According to his mother, Ming Xian was a compulsive liar who insisted on the truthfulness of his statements. He was an uncontrollable child who took no responsibility for his actions, and his mother was afraid of him because he seemed to be a person without feelings. Obsessive fixation on Mary Stauffer. From 1965 to 1966, at the age of 15 and 16, Ming Xian attended Alexander Ramsey High School in Roseville. Mary Stauffer was his 9th grade math teacher, and he developed a strong obsession with her during that year. At the time, Ming Xian wrote sexual stories with fictional characters from books and movies. After Mary became his teacher, he added her to his stories, writing sexual narratives that included rape, non-consensual acts, gang rape, and unhealthy relationships. These fantasies grew more intense over the years, to the point where they were no longer enough for him. Attempts at abduction and subsequent crimes. 10 years later, in 1975, a 25-year-old Ming Xian was still infatuated with Mary. He decided to find her home address. By asking former classmates and acquaintances, he mistakenly found the address of Mary's in-laws. Armed with a gun and intending to see Mary, he entered the wrong house. He tied up Mary's in-laws with a rope and threatened to kill them if they reported him to the police. For this reason, they never reported him and were unaware of his identity. Ming Xian continued his search but could not find Mary for several years, as she and her husband had moved to the Philippines to work as Christian missionaries. Mary and her husband returned to Minnesota in 1979. A year later, Ming Xian discovered that Mary was living on the Bethel University campus. After several weeks of searching, he found her on the street. By this time, 15 years had passed since Mary was his math teacher. Abduction and murder. On May 16, 1980, Mary and her 8-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, went to a salon. As they were leaving, Ming Xian threatened them with a gun, bound their hands and feet, and put them in the trunk of his car. Ming Xian's intention was to take Mary and Elizabeth to his home. However, during the drive, Elizabeth was crying and Mary was screaming. Ming Xian stopped the car multiple times. During the second stop, a 6-year-old boy named Jason Wilkman approached the car and noticed Mary and Elizabeth in the trunk. To prevent Jason from telling anyone, Ming Xian put him in the trunk as well. He then changed his route, went to a wildlife area in Anoka County, took Jason out of the car, and beat him to death with a metal rod. Police were unaware of Jason's fate until Ming Xian's arrest, imprisonment, and abuse of victims. After killing Jason, Ming Xian abandoned the body and went to his home, where he locked Mary and Elizabeth in a small, narrow closet. A few hours later, he took Mary out of the closet, bound her hands and feet, and talked to her for hours. Mary had no idea who had abducted her or why. Ming Xian told Mary that he had been her math student 15 years prior and recounted details of that school year. He then repeatedly raped her. Ming Xian filmed everything that happened that night with a video camera. He told Mary that because of a low grade she had given him, he showed her a B. He couldn't go to college and was forced to serve in the Vietnam War, where he was taken as a prisoner. Ming Xian's claims about the war were lies, like many of his other assertions. Ming Xian kept his victims separate. He would put Elizabeth in a small box in his van for 8 hours and keep Mary locked in the closet. Ming Xian told Mary that if she tried to escape, her husband and son would be killed. The rapes and sexual abuse continued every night as Ming Xian acted out all the sexual fantasies and scenarios he had imagined for 15 years. On Mary's birthday, he raped her, filmed it, and asked her if she was enjoying her birthday. He then asked her to call him by her husband's name. Xue said things to Mary that she had only ever heard from her husband. When Mary asked if he had put microphones in their house, Ming Xian became agitated and threatened to suffocate Elizabeth with plastic if Mary did not act like she was with her husband. Escape and arrest. On the 7th of July, 1980, about 7 weeks after the abduction, Ming Xian went to work, and Mary Stauffer managed to use a small hairpin to remove the hinge of the closet door. Despite being chained, Mary and Elizabeth were able to get to the kitchen and call the police on the home's landline. They immediately fled the house in their chained state because Elizabeth was afraid Ming Xian would return before the police. They hid behind a car parked in the alley and waited for the police. When the police arrived, officers went to Ming Xian's house with their guns drawn. Mary and Elizabeth were freed, and after ensuring their well-being, police sent officers to Ming Xian's workplace and arrested him that same day. Trials and sentences. Ming Haixinhui was taken to an adult detention center. There, he offered a fellow inmate $50,000 to kill Mary Stauffer and Elizabeth so they could not testify in court. The inmate reported this offer to the FBI, which worsened Ming Xian's legal situation. 2 trials were held for Ming Xian Xue. First trial, 1980, pertained to the kidnapping of Mary and Elizabeth and the rape of Mary. He was found guilty under the federal kidnapping law and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. At the time, federal laws were different. One could become eligible for parole after 10 years and was required to be released after 30 years if parole was not granted. Currently, federal parole for kidnapping and rape is possible after 30 years, and there is no mandatory release for these crimes. The judge recommended that Ming Haixin serve the full 30 years and not be granted parole after 10 years. Second trial, 1981, pertained to the murder of Jason Wilkman. During this trial, Ming Xian managed to smuggle a knife into the courtroom. When Mary Stauffer took the stand to testify, Ming Xian leaped from the table and attacked her, slashing her face with the knife. Mary required 62 stitches. During the same session, Ming Xian yelled at Mary, telling her that when he was released from prison, he would kill her and Elizabeth. Psychological evaluations showed that Ming Xian Xue did not suffer from any mental illness and could not use a lack of mental soundness to escape prison and a life sentence. At the end of the second trial, Xue was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of Jason. This 40-year sentence was not to be added to his 30-year sentence, but was to run concurrently, meaning he was not expected to serve 70 years in prison but would be released after 40 years. Police were unaware of the location of Jason's body. Xue told the police he would only reveal the location if he was not convicted of first-degree murder for Jason's death. The police agreed to his proposal, so his 40-year sentence would run concurrently with the first one, and there would be no first-degree murder conviction. Attempts at release and current status. On the 6th of July, 2011, Ming Xian Shui completed his first 30-year sentence. Although 10 years remained on his 40-year sentence, he applied for parole, which was immediately denied. On the 28th of September, 2011, Anoka District Judge Jenna Walker Jesber ruled that Ming Xian Shui was a dangerous sexual predator and should not be released back into society for an indefinite period, even if he were to become eligible for parole. At the same time that Judge Jenna Walker was working to sentence Shui and prevent his parole, Ming Hsian sought forgiveness from Mary, saying that she had every right to hate him. Upon hearing Ming Xian's apology, Elizabeth said she hoped the man's remorse was genuine, but in her opinion, Ming Xian Hui was too dangerous to be granted parole and returned to society. Ming Xian Shui appealed the ruling that Judge Jenna Walker had set for him, but his appeal was denied, and his opinion was not considered. Since 2016, the U.S. Parole Commission has repeatedly denied Shui's requests for parole. Given the situation, it is unlikely this man, whose 40-year sentence ended in 2020 and who is now 75 years old, will ever be released. Mary and Elizabeth Stauffer are happy and living good lives today. Elizabeth is married with children, and Mary loves her children and grandchildren and makes the most of the moments in her life. A film based on the murder, rape, and kidnapping case committed by Ming Xian Shui was made in 2019, titled Abducted: The Mary Stauffer Story, in which Allison Hannigan plays the role of Mary.